Hello guys and welcome back to the second video for layout sketching. I understand that the last video was probably one of the most confusing things that you've ever listened to. So this is our attempt in trying to explain layout sketching through more of an interactive activity by making the most simplest phone stand you can ever think of. Yeah, and as usual, we have a special, not special, uncommon, common guest, Raj. Raj, say hi.
Hi.
Yep.
Hi.
So he's always there now. And yeah, we'll just get on with it. This is my document. As you can see, I've made absolutely no changes to it at all. It's in its default configuration. The very first thing I see two unnamed tabs here, which I absolutely hate. So what I will do is I will name this phone stand. And what you can also do is you can also abbreviate stuff. So instead of Part Studio, I can say PS. And then I can say phone stand assembly. Okay. And I highly recommend for you guys to follow along while I do this. Um, you can also create your own phone stand and just kind of reference this video for different advice and different milestones. But definitely make your own parts to make your own document and just kind of follow along this video. I'll also include little pauses, so it'll basically be like a Sal Khan video. Um, that's what I'm aiming for. So hopefully it'll help you guys out. If you guys remember from a last video, I said that the very first thing you should do before even layout sketching is drawing a phone stand out. Me and Raj just did that in 5 seconds. I think a caveman can definitely draw something a lot better than what we drew. Hopefully you guys can see the Discord, but here it is. This is from a side view, so uh, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to figure out who drew which sketch. Um, but the original idea was that this little brick over here, this is from the side view, so this little red brick over here is the phone, and then the purple is kind of like the backstop where it lays on, and then this yellow dotted line is the ground where this corner rests on, and then we have a kind of just some plastic going protruding out from the base or like from the back over here. And this plastic won't move, and then we have a pivot point on that plastic with another plastic piece attached that pivots, and so hopefully we will be able to change the what's it called? Change the angle of the phone. As you can see, this is definitely not museum worthy. Maybe modern art, but that's even a stretch. But yeah, just it's just something for us to get our ideas down, and just to get on the same track, which I think definitely helped us out. Okay, so what I will do is I'll probably just have a photo of the drawing up in a video, and then you guys will be able to slowly see um, the phone stand taking shape. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to figure out where you need to start in your plane cube. Um, I said to in last meeting or last video, I said to please follow the plane cube, right? Don't make the front of your phone stand the right plane. And just for clarification, the image you're seeing on the video right now, or the image you're seeing right now, is from the left side of the phone stand. It can also be the right if you want, doesn't really matter, but I decided it's gonna be in left. So I'm gonna go on the left side and I will make my very first sketch there. Um, so Starting from the side is very, very common in FRC, and it is probably also very, very common in FTC, and I can tell you it's just common in the industry. No one starts from the front view because that's a bit weird to think about. So side view is always the way to go. All right, so the very first thing right now should be, in FTC terms, the ground and the field elements, right? So the ground, I will just make a line. You can also just follow along if you want. and I made a construction because if you guys remember, the ground doesn't really isn't really an integral part of my phone stand. It's not a part of my phone stand actually at all. The ground is just there for me to, figure out how the phone stand will rest. Okay, and the second thing I want to make is the phone itself, right? So this will also be a construction line because, first off, I don't want to extrude a phone. I mean, I might later for prototyping parts, which we might cover, but in general, I just, wanted for me to see just like a construction rectangle that I can easily reference. So, this is, by the way, I clicked on aligned rectangle. You'll see what this does in a bit, and I also press Q for construction. Okay, so we're gonna go here and and it just deselected itself. Okay, and so how line rectangles works is you actually first draw out the well, it's pretty hard to explain. So hopefully you just saw how it works. You kind of draw out a base of the rectangle first, and then you just drag your mouse out to create the rest of the rectangle. Okay, now we have to actually dimension the phone, right? Because iPhones are superior, I will search up iPhone dimensions. Raj, do you agree with that?
No, but let's keep it off this video.
Okay, alright. Look who's talking. So, since we are from the side view, we're gonna make the width of the iPhone 7.8 millimeters and the length 147.6 millimeters. Um, So going back to, I have to find my, there it is. I'll move it up here. So what I say, 7.8, 7.8 millimeters, right? And you can directly type in into the dimension kind of box. And then what did I say? 147, 147.6. So 147.6 millimeters. Cool. Um, Raj, how slanted do you want your superior iPhone to be? Like, what angle do you think will be good?
Um,
Because this seems a
think
bit steep.
maybe go for like not quite a 45, but maybe like a 60-degree angle.
60-degree angle. All right.
60, 65 maybe.
Uh, 60, 65. We'll do 60. So apparently
Sure.
we're now making a phone
Make it.
stand for Raj. There you go. So we have the phone stand. Now we have a problem that it floats. So Raj, how high do you want your phone to be off the ground?
Quarter of an inch off the ground.
Quarter of an inch off the ground. All right. Yes, sir. So now if we try to move the phone, you'll see that the only way it's moving is left to right. So we've mostly constrained the phone. Now it's up to you how you want to constrain it. I will just put a vertical or vertical constraint between the origin and this point on the phone, and there you go. The phone is now fully constrained. So this is the very first step of layout sketching that we just completed, and the last step for it is actually to name it. So I will just name this ground plus phone. That's not how you spell ground plus phone. All right, cool. And now you can check mark. Okay. So we've created it on the right plane, which is fine, and now we will create another sketch for actually to start off marking out the phone stand, right? So we will make multiple sketches for this. So what, just for the sake of the analogy to go to FTC. So the very first sketch will just be the base of it, just without the pivot point, and then the second sketch will actually be the pivot point. So we'll name this base for now. Okay. So I wanted my phone stand to be in contact with the ground at a point over here, right? And of course, so the very first thing you can actually start doing is just very kind of um, drafting out the original geometry of the phone stand. So I am just adding constraints right now, right? I am not dimensioning this line at all, which is a really good practice for creating layout sketches, right? You will be able to add dimensions after you've just created your overall shape. So for now, just stick with geometric constraints, right? By the way, you can also just make the what's it called? You can make a geometry of your phone stand different from mine. You can make it go up to only half the phone. You can make it go full to like the whole length of the phone, but I'll leave you up to that. So what I'll do now is I will skip this part of the video, and I will let you guys just figure out your own geometry. Okay, so I just finished the original draft of the geometry of the phone stand. This is without the pivot point over here. But I've used literally no dimensions at all. There you can see no dimension here, which is good, right? Um, Now I will actually start to uh, put dimensions onto the stand because that I really do not want this to be moving around, right? I will just use my gut feeling on this, right? Looking at the side of the phone, I don't want my stand to be too thick. I don't want the stand to be too thin because then it'll break. If you remember back to our 3D printing video, usually a good thickness is about 4 millimeters. You can do 6 millimeters if you want to, because just 6 millimeters is usually used for like strength or parts that need strength. I actually have a really weird thing going on over here, but we'll do 4 millimeters, and then we'll see what else can you move, and then I will make this distance. We'll make it 0.1. Cool. And then that looks good for now. That looks like something of a phone stand. And another thing, so what I really want to do is I want to make the width of this section over here not reliant on the width of this section over here, which it currently is for some reason, right? You can see that if I want to change the width of this section of the phone stand, I can. You can figure out what's blocking that by physically changing it and causing multiple errors to pop up. Now you look at trying to find out what is prohibiting you from letting you change the width of this, which I think is just like a regular geometry thing. So we're gonna let it be. Um, so I'm honestly fine with this distance as well. If I really wanted to, I could change the width of it, but this looks great. I'm comfortable with it. So now I will move on to the pivot point. So for the pivot point, going back to the whiteboard, my idea is something like this. So from the side view, going back to Onshape, you see that I included a little circle over here. This is because I do not want the pivot point to be locking. I want it to be free. So what will happen is, let's just pretend that this is against side view, this is this circle that you saw from the side. So from the front view, it will actually just be kind of like a bar going across. And then I kind of want to just make a sleeve that goes on top of it, kind of like that, and like this. This is a very bad drawing. I'm sorry, I'm trying my best. Drawing with a mouse isn't easiest. And the sleeve will go over this bar, um, and it will just be able to freely spin around it, and then the rest of the stand will be attached to it. So I actually did make an example of this in the cookbook holder that I made for my mom. So we're gonna quickly go to it, and I'll show you how it looks like. So on the back, here is the pivot point, right? This little stand over here pivots to the base. So if I do Shift X and I press on the section view, I'll move this arrow here, and you can see that from the left view, going back to my iPhone stand, if you see this circle in the section view, that is this same exact circle, right? If I hide this stand, you'll see that it goes across in the middle over here. So if I hide the base, you'll see that my little leg here has a hole, and this hole kind of slides onto that cylinder, and then now it can just freely move. So we're basically aiming for the same thing. Pretty simple. So yeah. So let's see. I think I will want my little plastic static thing to be maybe sticking out an inch. And I will also make this maybe about 6 millimeters as well, just for the sake. That looks a bit too thin to me. Maybe 8 millimeters. That looks better. Okay. Now what else is okay? So it can move down and up, which is not ideal. I will dimension it down here to be 4 inches. Okay. Now we can start working on the pivot point. This is considered a layout sketch, even though you might think that it's very, very simple. It might just be considered as a regular sketch because we are basing it off of a representation of the ground on the phone. And it's very, very simple. Like you see, no fillets are involved here. There's absolutely no 3D parts at all. And we're just kind of rolling with our gut. Okay. So now we can make the stand. I want the stand to, going back to Discord, to the whiteboard, I want the stand to kind of be not just a straight stick going down, but I want to have like a nice little flat section at the end here, kind of like that, which sits smoothly and parallel to the ground, right? So let's do that. That's what I'm thinking of. If you have other ideas, go for it, but I will start to do that. And I will now skip the video and let you kind of do some layout sketching on your own. Okay, so here is my little pivot stand right here. Again, very, very simple. I first did it without any dimensions. Um, I'll quickly walk you through what I did here. So um, I made a circle. Here, looking back at the base sketch, we know that this circle represents the little cylinder um, over here, right? That kind of stretches across. And then these two circles represent the little sleeve that slides onto the cylinder. So going back here, this will just be this hole, right? Um, so here is the hole in the center, and then here's kind of the shell encapsulating the hole. And then I have a little plastic bit going down, all the way down, and then hitting the ground, and then sitting nice and flat with it. Again, I just went off with my gut, with the dimensions and everything. If you're curious about the clearance I gave between the hole and the sleeve, I did 0.4 millimeters, and then for the thickness of the sleeve, I did 2 millimeters. Okay, so now we actually have to model the pivot of the little stand back here. This is actually a very simple thing to do in Onshape. You just have to use the circle feature with the construction, with just a construction circle basically. So since this whole stand pivots around this center point over here, you will start the origin of your construction circle at the origin of the pivot. Stretch it out all the way to to like the very end of your stand, and now you can see that if you, for example, make it coincident with this point, you will able to see the rotational trajectory of that point, right? If you do it with the midpoint, you'll be able to see the rotational trajectory of the midpoint, and then same with the furthermost point. So which one do you pick? That is a great question. I'm currently thinking about it, and I think what I'll do is I will actually pick the innermost point because this point will inevitably come in contact with the base of the phone stand. Um, so I want to see where it will come in contact, and I'll just be able to plan ahead for it. What you can also now do is you can make another very simple, we'll kind of just copy down your, what's it called? Your stand and model it how it would be resting against the base. So let's actually do that. I will create a few more pivot circles for the rest of the points because now what I'll be able to do is set some constraints across them, which is really, really cool. So I know that looking at the pivot, we know that this line, okay, so looking at this pivot circle, we see that this pivot circle comes in contact with this point. So this point will be precisely in contact over here. All right, so going back to here, you see that there's a line connected between this point and this point, or this circle and this circle. So I made a line over here, and now all I have to do is select that line, select this line, select the equal constraint. So this is where it's getting pretty cool. You can now see that you're slowly modeling out the rest of your stand in its rotated resting state. So I will continue doing this. I will continue to do this with the rest of the stand. We know there's a point over here, and point down there, right? And I will make this line equal to this line, and there you go. Right? Actually, what I'll do to be more safe is I'll make this line equal with the line over here. So hopefully you just understood what I did. I quite literally took all of these rotational, like these circles, placed them to model out the rotational trajectory of each of these points. And then since I know that each of these circles are connected with, each of these points are connected with lines, and now these points are modeled out with my circles, and I know that this point will come in contact with the base precisely over here. I can now slowly start to model out the rest of my stand. So now what do I do from here? That's a great question. Now all you have to do is I made a construction line over here to go to the center, and I will do that and make it parallel with you, and you just like have to draw out the rest of your stand, right? And there you go. Now you've modeled out the ending and starting position of the rotational pivot, or the pivot of your phone stand. Pretty cool. This is a very, very good practice to do in layout sketching. You really want to use these construction circles to model out any rotational trajectory of anything on your bot. And you also definitely want to model out the starting and end configurations of each mechanism on your bot. That is very, very important. Another good practice to do is to just simply start your sketch of your component with a construction line. So before I actually made all of these rigid lines, the very first thing I made was this construction line going from the center, from the pivot point all the way down to the ground. And then I just modeled everything around it, right? I made this line parallel with the construction line. I made this line parallel with the construction line. So you can just easily start modeling stuff around it. But hopefully that helped you out a bit. And again, please do try to follow along. It should slowly start to make some things clear about layout sketching. Okay, so that is the side profile of the stand. So that is probably going to be one of your first layout sketches you ever made. So pretty cool, and congrats. Now what I want to do is I actually want to try and model out this pivot point, except from the back view over here, right? So what I'll do is I'll have to actually use the plane feature. The reason I want to use the plane feature is I actually want to create a plane on this line, kind of facing downwards, because this is kind of normal to the pivot. It'll be a lot easier to think about than just simply making it on a plane from the front view, or like from a plane that is parallel to the front view. So I'll make a plane there, and I will make a sketch on this plane. So this is where the top-down sketching comes into play, right? First off, I have to figure out how thick do I want my stand to be. That's a good question. I think I'll make it 1/2 inch. So I will do, let's see. First, I will actually model out the cylinder where it pivots around itself first, and then we'll do the stand. So for the pivot point, or the pivot cylinder, I will just simply use a center point rectangle, and I will coincident it with the side layout sketch. So yes, you can coincident different plane sketches with each other, which is pretty cool. Okay, I think I'll make it maybe 3/4 of an inch long. And then what I'll do is I will start making the center point rectangles of the rest of the stand. So I will make this coincident. Oh, that did not like that. Okay, hopefully that works. Nope, that does not like me. Okay, another tool that is very useful for layout sketching is something called Project. Project lets you grab stuff from one sketch and paste it into another very easily. So what I will do is I will actually just grab this circle from the side sketch and place it into a plane or a sketch that is perpendicular to it. Since it is projecting, it will just very simply show up as a line, right? I will also do the same with this circle over here. So I will make this rectangle coincident with this point, and I will make another aligned rectangle, shortcut R, and make it coincident like that. Okay. So now to organize myself, I know that this 0.75 center point rectangle is, if we go back to the cubicule holder, it's kind of looking at the cylinder from this view, right? It's modeling out the length of this cylinder, which is 0.75 inches. And then if we go and look at these two center point rectangles, this is the sleeve from this view. So if we do a quick little, you'll see that the very first center point rectangle models out this like inner shell right here, where my mouse is going along. And then the upper one actually models out the top or like the outer shell kind of, right? That kind of goes like this. So yeah. Okay, so what I'll do is I will actually make these shorter than the cylinder itself. So I'll make them maybe 0.05 inches shorter, and this will be coincident with that. Okay, and I will say this is pivot point back view. Okay, and check mark, and same here. So piv back view. Remember, you want to name your stuff. Okay. All right, and that is starting to look pretty good. Now let's actually just quickly model out the front of the phone stand, which will actually require me to model out the front of the phone, right? This is where I can easily use my rollback bar to go back to where I sketched out the ground and the iPhone to make my another kind of layout sketch of the phone itself from the front, right? So I make another plane that is perpendicular or parallel or whatever to this line. So it's 90 degrees, so it is perpendicular. And then I name it front phone. Cool. Check mark, and now I make a new sketch on it. I will make a center point rectangle that is also a construction coincident with the top of the iPhone. So what's really nice about center point rectangle is they're symmetrical. So if you place the center point on the midpoint of the phone, and then coincident the top of the center point rectangle to the top of the phone, you'll see that it also coincident at the bottom of the center point rectangle to the bottom of the phone, because it is symmetric. It's kind of mirrored over. Going back to the width of the iPhone, it is 71.6 millimeters wide. So I will go ahead and I measure it to be 71.6 millimeters wide, and we'll say front phone. Press check mark. Okay, now this is where I can actually start to use folders in my feature list. I can place these 3 features inside of phone plus ground layout, and I'll stop at that for now for organizing it. Okay, now I can create the front of the stand, right? I will actually just use the same plane as I did for the front of the phone, so front phone, and I will name this front stand. There you go. And this should be pretty simple to model. You just have to, picture your stand from the front, right? So I will make a center point rectangle at, of course, the center of the stand, and I will stretch it out to here. And now, how far out do I want my phone stand to go beyond my phone? I will make it maybe 1/4 of an inch. That looks great. And then, if you look from the side view, there's actually this little small part that kind of protrudes out. So what I'll do is I'll also just model it out with its own separate rectangle. And how I'll do that is first I'll make a construction line going down and coincident with this. This is where, again, project comes in handy, which I will make to project this point, and I will coincident. I will make this line cover this from this point to this point, and then I will make a center point rectangle in the midpoint of that line, stretching all the way out to here. Okay, cool. Very, very simple front view of the stand. Okay. Now you can also do a similar thing for the kind of leg, the pivot leg over here as well, right? Where you make another plane over here, make it 9 degrees, and make another sketch depicting it. I will leave that up to you if you want to do it, because I will now move on to the extruding. What I actually have to check first is I actually have to check the length of the width of the stand. So 2.8, I'll just copy that number, go back to my extrude and place it down. I captured the wrong length. To this, so I'll copy it down. I'll go back to my extrude and I will put it into the depth, and as you can see, it extruded my phone stand symmetrically right across the plane. Okay, now I have to create my pivot point over here. Let's do this. So I will create another extrude feature, checkmark symmetric, and I will do that for now. And yeah, we'll make it 0.75 as we put in the layout sketch. We'll make it 0.75 inches wide. Press checkmark. And then now what we can do is we can go and remove. Let me think about how to do this better. Okay, and then now what you can do is you can click on kind of the outer shell of the pivot point, and what I'll do is I'll just simply extrude 0.5 inches and make it symmetric. All right, and I can see you have like a little hole here. That I can actually make it 0.6 just to go out to the very edges. Cool. And now I will make sure my stand is visible. I will click on U and then click on U and make sure it's pressed new, press symmetric, and make it maybe half an inch, something like that. Press checkmark, and there you go. So of course, there's absolutely no clearance here. So what I would have done is I would have made another sketch where I created this kind of gap a bit larger than this shell itself. But for the sake of this video, I wasn't really focusing on that. I just wanted to introduce you guys to very simple layout sketching and very simple kind of top-down layout sketching as well. So now what you can do is you can add fillets everywhere, basically. So any sharp corner, so here, definitely here, here, and whatnot. Here as well, but again, not really necessary. I do recommend if you want to practice it. So yeah, Raj, anything else?
So it seems like the sketches that you end up using, which are not at the current angle that you're at, but 90 degrees rotated, I guess, to the left of this, those sketches end up being not, at least not all of them, but some of them end up being there just more for reference than actually being used.
Yes. They also help you out plan. They also help you plan out the specific lengths of the phone stand. So, for example, in the front stand sketch, I figured out how wide I want my phone stand to be. In the sketch that you create for the stand back here, you will also figure out how wide you would like your leg out here to be. So, yeah, they're generally just there for reference, but for robotics, they will definitely be very useful in basically planning out your whole bot during layout sketching.
No.
All right, cool. So we'll see you guys in the next video where we will hopefully start layout sketching some more complicated stuff, some FTC related stuff. So see you guys.